The stories we tell define us. This is the story of how a whole race of people almost lost their stories in a time of genocide. Stories are alive. These stories were so ancient and so wise, they hid themselves till the time was right for them to return. Then they travelled on the wind over the plains and mountains of the great Karoo till they reached the village of Nieu Bethesda, where their scattered descendants waited without hope, no longer knowing what they were waiting for.
It's a very important area for the Bushmen. In these mountains around here in Nieu Bethesda, there's a lot of Bushman rock arts. Thousands and thousands. They were the first people here in this area. Also here in South Africa, they don't want to talk about the genocide of the Bushman people. We don't understand how can you rewrite history.
To the incomers, the indigenous people were little more than vermin to be exterminated. The people they were destroying were people of story, stories that, like arteries and capillaries, were a living web that kept them connected to the earth and sky, the sacred eland, at the heart of life. The beautiful eland antelope is created by Kagan, the mantis, the ever-present trickster figure, central to Bushman mythology.
Old man Kagan had a sadness, and he saw blood drops. Blood drops. Look at the stone where he normally feeds his eland. The stone were covered with blood. And he started to follow the blood drops. And then he saw it. They're having a feast with his eland.
He take his bow and arrow, shoot at them. The arrow stand back and shoot the old man. He take his nokiri, ran to them and tried to hit them. But the nokiri turned around and hit the old man because of all the fighting power of the great eland that go into the meerkat. They say to him, "You old man, go and get us some firewood so that we can have a feast on our meat." And the old man crawled up to the bush.
And old man Kagan was bitter. He was sad. He was so sad. And he was laying there on the ground, crawling. Old man Kagan couldn't see where he was going because his heart was broken. He's been beaten up by them. As he crawled up to the bush, he finds the gallbladder of the eland. And he opens the gallbladder of the eland. And from that gallbladder, all the darkness, the whole world turns black.
I didn't really know who I was. I didn't know my culture. I didn't know my language.
When I first heard that I was Bushman, it felt like it was an insult because in the apartheid years, Bushman were like a skill name. We could say it in Afrikaans, like a flute name. The Boers would always say, "Hey Bushman, come here."
I was a little bit embarrassed because how can a long man like me be a Bushman? I always say the short man is Bushman, but I'm not Bushman.
The Bushmen were designated coloured by their conquerors, and the only name they had for themselves that connected them to their ancestors was a term of abuse. A name is a thing of power.
We've lost our language, and this is something that we would like to get back. People speak it here and there, but it's not the original. It's not how it should be. So we've lost it completely.
One day this man finds this young lion cub. At home, he told his wife that this is his hunting dog. His wife looked at this thing. His wife said, "No, this is no dog. Look at those yellow eyes and those round ears. This is no dog," she said. "This is a lion." And then the moment she named the word lion, the lion lifted up his head, and then the lion, he knew his name. Then she said, "You see that? This is a lion. This thing is man-eaters. It's going to destroy our family."
The symbolic lion brought into our collective Earth home might be nuclear war or climate catastrophe. In our fractured Indigenous community of Nieu Bethesda, the uncontrollable dark peril brought into the house by the foolish lying man is alcoholism.
We all were drinking. Our lives could have get better if we didn't drink.
Every time I need a drink, I go and get me some alcohol. I didn't care about even washing for weeks. Dark things, everything was falling apart in my life.
I can see the alcohol is really the root of all our struggles.
We started policy at the Art Center then. We're not going to drink anymore. It's now 2.5 years, almost 3 years, that we are really clean.
Transformation always begins in the heart. At the Art Center, people were given ways of discovering who they are and of expressing that self by making art. They began to feel more alive.
The center give a person so much that you never would have dreamed before.
I didn't know anything about drawing. And then I started doing some drawing and Jenny praised me a lot. She said, oh, your drawing looks fantastic. And I think, but this is just a few scratches. How can you see that my drawing looks fantastic? But as I go on, I still didn't believe that I was an artist. I love working with people, so I've been working in the gallery, showing them around, talking about the art center. And as time goes by, I really started to see maybe I am an artist.
First, we started with doing some drawings, and then I've built myself up as an artist. For me, I really need the center to stay clean.
Here in the center, I learned to make beautiful artwork, and this is what makes my life complete. There was all this time in my life, I feel there's a hole in it. But when I do art, I feel like the bricks has been put in the places where the holes is in my life.
Jenny came and she said that we should be proud of who we are. And she started to work with us, work with our past, and she's been telling the stories to us and reading the stories, and we've been listening, and it was very difficult to accept who we are. But at the end, we started to become proud of who we are. And we're doing the stories onto our quilts, and for me, it relates so much to my lifestyle.
We are very happy for all those people who write the history of the Bushmen from the Bushman side. If they remove the name Bushman, and our heritage will be dead. That's why we say we want to talk for ourselves.
The Bushman Heritage Museum became a place of healing, where the collective psyche that was broken could begin to heal. It became a treasure trove of ancient Bushman wisdom within a contemporary frame, a doorway from the toxic into the sacred.
This is the story which I tell thee. At first the sun was a sleeping man. In his house on earth he gave forth brightness only in the space around him. The children were those who gently approached to lift up the sun armpit while the sun armpit lay sleeping.
The old woman said to the children, "O children, going yonder, you must speak to him. When you throw him up, you must instruct him. You must all together become the sun."
When the Bushmen described the creation of the sun, they were describing the awakening of consciousness in a universe where stories were threads connecting all living things to the stars, earth, wind, and rain. Destroying the indigenous people of the earth severed those connections in nature for all humanity.
We're in the presence of greatness. This is a world-class museum, and how absolutely wonderful that we have Tuki here today to properly bless this place because the pain of reading the words of what happened to the Bushmen and how their words had been silenced affects all of us.
Just before the Xam language was wiped out at the end of the 19th century, a precious archive was created. A linguist, Wilhelm Blake, got 5 extraordinary Bushman prisoners released into his custody. Teaching their language click by click and word by word to Blake and his collaborator Lucy Lloyd, the prisoners told their stories. Then for about 100 years, the manuscript was forgotten. Here we've got the portraits of the people who actually told the stories. This one is Karoo, who was regarded by many as the main storyteller. He was a man in his mid-50s, and he was a shaman. He was very important where he tells his story, a little bit about how he felt being a prisoner, and also about the aspects of the mythology and the process of storytelling. And he wanted his stories to travel on the wind into the future for future generations. For the Xam was, as I see it, a form of meditation. It was a form of communion. They communed with each other, but they waited for the stories to come. And the stories were passed from one to another, and the stories were alive, and the stories were ancient, and they had meanings that for us are still totally relevant.
The boy asked his mother, "What is the name of my friend?" And when he called out the name of the wind's child, the son of the wind blew and would not be stopped.
All the storytellers got the stories from their mothers. Hankaso, a very, very talented storyteller, was someone who decided after the end of his sentence to go back to Cape Town and work with the linguists again. And on the way back to Cape Town, he was traveling with his wife and his baby, and a policeman beat him very badly, beat his wife very badly, and she died of her wounds, and the baby died also. So he arrived in Mowbray having lost his wife and having lost his child, and his other child he'd had to leave behind.
My mother left me with my grandmother, and she never returned.
It was hard to let my mother go because she was the closest one for me all my life.
My grandfather raised me. My mother was in Johannesburg, then she went to Cape Town. And it wasn't so easy for me as a child.
As we worked with the stories, the participants not only recognized themselves in museum photographs and dioramas of Bushmen, but in small details of their way of life. Deeply shocking for us all was the recognition that the suffering of the narrators did not seem that far from the difficult lives of the center artists. Hunger, abandonment, abuse, prison were all too familiar.
Getting involved with textile was quite a challenge for me. Like, if I would say myself, I'm a person that really likes to learn new things. I like to experiment new things.
I was thinking to myself that, oh no, you can't do it. But then this time, it was my first time that I was on the machine doing welding, stitching, and working on some real face expressions and doing some real artwork. That is really amazing for me. So I want to put my all in it and just do my best. And I love doing artwork.
For me, to make art is like I'm creating life. And for me, it's a love for art that is inside me. And I put it onto a lino. That's the love I show to the whole world.
This is the girl who made stars. She was so powerful. When she looked at the springbok while they were hunting, she could make the springbok eyes go wild. The girl said to the Milky Way,
You must all together become the Milky Way. You must lie along in the sky. You must follow your own footprints. When the day breaks, you shall wax white. When the night comes, you shall wax red.
This is Kwaiten Ken, and she came back with her husband, Carson, very briefly to Mowbray after his release. Quite interestingly, what she told were stories mainly about women, the young girls, and what happens during the power of the menses of the young girl, and how powerful and therefore how dangerous the young woman can be. But the most fascinating for me story that she told was the story of the leopard tortoise, which is about the devouring female womb. And, you get that concept a lot in Jung and in modern psychology of the power of the feminine to entrap. Mythology is unusual in that the creation of the universe, the sun and the stars, is led by the power of the feminine.
Through Jenny and through the group, I never should know about Karoo, about Lucy Lloyd, about Henkaso, all these other ancestors that have been told these stories. It is like I've lost my culture, but I found it through the stories.
I would like them to see how creative we are, and also that our story reach everyone.
From a situation where our participants said things like, well, drawing is for kids, to the point where we have a tapestry in the British Museum, has been a long journey. And for me, if we can make through our work the incredible mythology of the Bushman people, which is so pertinent to all humanity in helping us to reconnect with our roots in nature.
I remember on our trip to the Iziko Museum in Cape Town, they have the sculptures of Bushmans, and there was one that looked exactly like me. It took me quite a few years to really accept that I was a Bushman. If I look at my features, my cheekbones and my nose as well, so I might be close to 100% if I would guess.
We look at the photographs of them, and we look so much alike to Karoo and Hankaso.
My great-grandmother and my great-grandfather I think they are also Bushmen because their face expressions and the hair and everything looks like Bushmen.
Yes, I've learned a lot about how intelligent they was, how they know about everything that is happening now. And I think, wow, that is good to be a Bushman. This is very good because they was very intelligent people. They know about the sun. They know about the moon. They even know about every rock that is in Nieu Bethesda. Kagan call his son. Come here, son. I want to send you to collect me some sticks so that I can take aim on the people that sit on the hills. The baboons saw him from far. They asked him, what are you doing here, son? And he tell them, my father have sent me to come and collect some sticks so that he can take aim on the people that sit on the hills. They didn't understand. They called the wise baboon. Tell again. The wise baboon says to them, can't you hear? This boy is talking about us. We are the ones that sit on the hills. And they start hitting with baboon fists. They hit the son until his head turned open. They take his eye and started to play ball with the eye.
And the Kagan saw it all clearly. He ran up to the baboons. And then he came to them and said, can I play with you? And the baboon said, yes, you can play. And they throw the eye. And then old man Kagan catch the eye. Where is our ball? Where is our ball? You have our ball. And old man Kagan said, no, I don't have your ball. I don't. Look. And they said, but you have a bag. Shake out your bag. And they hold the eye in the corner of the bag. And they shake the bag. He said, see, I don't have your ball. So the baboons were so angry. One of the baboons said, hit him with your fist. And as they were hitting him, he goes down on the ground. And he speak to the bear. He said to the bear, Hartebeest child, you must go. And the bear started to flew away with the eye. And old man Kagan flew after his bear. And as they flew, he came to the sacred pool. He held the eye in his hands and he dropped it into the sacred pool.
Mythology connects us with our own deepest wisdom and also with the collective wisdom of mankind. Mythological stories are very, very important, and the Bushmen very well understood the dangers that humanity faces when we try to dominate nature or when we try to declare our equality with nature. So the stories are full of those kinds of warnings. If you try to dominate the wind, you will be blown to pieces. Or if you take a lion home and tell your wife it's a dog and pretend it's a dog and try to make it serve you, you will be eaten. If you kill the sacred eland and gorge on it, the honey in the bush will dry up and darkness will be unleashed, as in the stories we tell.
Jenny worked with me mostly on the deepness of the quotes, what it means. Sometimes the meanings might be very deep. To know who I am is also a big thing for me. And through these stories, I do feel that I found my people.
It feels for me like I've been there. I'm sitting on that fire, around that fire, when they tell the story.
So some of the stories are quite related to the times we were brought up. So in a way, it's like a reflection of a mirror.
Through their eyes, that it was created. And it's like a part of it is giving back to us.
Our most recent tapestry, which we've called These Are Our Stories, is a coming together of all the myths we've explored so far, this time with our own faces, the narrators, and Bushman grandparents, all worked into the fabric.
Every picture says something. Just look at the picture without reading the notes. Every picture says something very interesting.
Sort of a personal, spiritual journey to become closer to myself. And I felt it very strong in the museum because you see the bush people and it talks about the horror and then the mythology, and it's really about our collective roots and the connection and loss of that connection.
Exactly.
And to me, that is very relevant.
That museum tells us what we really are, because we didn't know what we really are. And about that museum, we can see now what we really are. We are Bushmen, because we never accept what our fathers say. But now we can see we're really Bushmen.
It's a privilege to be here because you don't actually work here. You learn a lot about human being, how to understand other human being, how to understand most of things in the world.
Most of the village people, they really didn't know what we were doing, what the artwork is about and all of that. So for me, it was a great thing that they actually know now what we do here at the center.
Out there, they don't know these stories. And now we open up to the community of Nieu Bethesda to say, come and have a look. We are here. Here is the heritage of Nieu Bethesda. These people were the first people here in Nieu Bethesda. And this is their lifestyle that we're showcasing here.
We've seen the privilege of how they've all grown. They've all become multi-talented. All their voices have been found room for, and that's the genius of the first artist, but what Jenny brings out in people that's theirs, so that she gives people the gift of finding themselves in the most profound way.
I know about my heritage. I see my great-grandparents and people that were so connected to me. And what I really felt to say was that it's not just the stories and all of that.
And it's not just how people see that's all going on about Bushmen and this and this. It's about the stories is for all of us. And if they, like Jenny taught us the meaning of the stories. And for me, the meaning is the most thing that I hold on to, is to be a better human being, is to know myself and to know how to see other people.
Genocide of Indigenous people all over the world has left humanity floundering. Cut off from our roots in nature and spirit, our species destroys the earth. These are our stories. These are your stories.